Hi everybody, I decided to end the semester by redoing my informative speech because the last time I saw it, I just watched the video and I just saw a bunch of gaps or holes or things that I could have added. So uh, I revised it and we're going to go over it again. So here we go. What if I were to tell you that the entire Bible was fake? That for over 2,000 years, people have just been creating elaborate stories to convince others to just live a better life, or even worse, just give them their money, just based on a false belief. And what if I didn't know Jesus? What if that was my reason for not believing in Jesus? Is I just believed it was all fake. I mean, down to the very words that we read every day in the Bible. And because of these questions, I want to share some of the complex levels to which the New Testament, its authenticity, is determined, and why it's so important to know this, at least on a basic level. We're going to be going over four different topics, which is the apostolicity rule, the rule of faith, the consensus rule, and last but not least, the textual criticism of the New Testament. So we're going to just dive right in. And but first, to really understand this, we got to understand why this is important to us, and that's because without understanding why the Word of God is true or false, we make it less effective when we share His message. Because if we don't fully believe it and hold on to it ourselves on a faith level and on a factual level, then it can really hinder the message that we try to put across. So, that being said, we got to know that there's just a few key criteria that we can take home with us. The first is the rule of apostolicity, or the apostolicity rule. The document had to be written by an apostle. An apostle was one who walked with Jesus or was an affiliate, like Timothy was with Paul. They had to be closely affiliated with an apostle or walk directly with Jesus to be under that rule, so their writings could be accepted. But even though they did walk with Jesus, apostles like Judas, they walked with Jesus as well. They had writings too. And when they would find those writings, they would fall under the second rule, which is the rule of faith. And that would mean it's determined by its alignment with the church's early doctrine. It had to be consistent with Christian truth, because if it wasn't, it would be known as heretical, which would go against their faith. So once it falls through those two filters, it goes through the consensus rule, which, once it was determined to be, of course, non-heretical, we see that it was fully accepted overall by the early church. So even if it was non-heretical, it was acceptable. The entire church actually had to accept it even then, which is known as, of course, consensus. That's why it's called the consensus rule. After all those three, we can actually look, this is how we determine it today. And I believe it's the most important rule when it comes to determining the authenticity of the New Testament, and that's the textual criticism. The last 3 points that we went over, they tell us how sound it is for our faith. Can we believe in these documents, for our faith, to believe in them? Can we put our trust in that? But the textual criticism actually tells us if the document is reliable. Before we even truly believe whether or not it's good for our faith, we have to know it's true. Is it reliable? So this process of textual criticism compiles multiple copies of the same document and to see if each document tells the same story. And the more copies you have, the better, from different timelines. So between 30 years after Jesus was resurrected to 2,000 years today, whatever we find, it has to add up. And actually, the New Testament has over 5,800 copies, and that's just in the Greek alone. And the Bible was known to be written in Greek, Aramaic, and Hebrew. So just in Greek alone, we have over 5,800 in the New Testament. That's 4 times more than any other type of historical document, including Socrates, Plato, any of that. We have more. And the craziest thing is all of those copies, all of that 5,800 plus, are identical. They all say the same thing, they state the same truth, they tell the same wonderful story. And so that we can take that home with us. We can take home that what we're reading is reliable, it's true, it's good for our faith, it's wonderful for your soul. And if we understand the weight of these words, if we really do take home the truth of this, it makes the preaching of this message that much more effective. So we've gone over the apostolicity rule, the rule of faith, the consensus rule, and overall the rule of textual criticism. And that really gives us a wonderful breakdown of learning the authenticity and the complex steps that we take in order to determine that for the New Testament. So if we know that and we take home that basic information, we're that much more better at our sharing of the gospel. Without understanding whether the word is true or false, we're less effective in sharing it. So I really appreciate y'all listening. I've really enjoyed this semester. Thank you all, and God bless. Have a wonderful, wonderful year.